60,000 jobs in a single month. June of 2026. One sector, one number larger than every job the entire American economy created that same month combined. Not tech layoffs, not factory closures, not office workers. Fry cooks, line servers, dishwashers, franchise managers. The people who ran the counter at the pizza place on the corner of your town's main road. The people who opened the seafood chain at 6 in the morning to prep the freezer. The people whose shift ended when they turned the sign around at 10 p.m. You have driven past their empty parking lots this year. You may have driven past 3 of them in the same week and not put it together. Here is what nobody is saying clearly enough. The Bureau of Labor Statistics released the June 2026 jobs report, and buried inside it was a number that should have led every newscast in the country. Total American payroll growth for the month: 57,000 jobs. Total losses in leisure and hospitality alone: roughly 61,000. Food services and drinking places specifically shed nearly 33,000 of those. The month before, that same sector had added tens of thousands of jobs. The recovery flatlined in 30 days, and the Bureau quietly revised the 2 prior months down as well. The labor market had been weaker than anyone was told. That is what 1 month looks like from the government spreadsheet. The scene on the ground is louder. Pizza Hut announced the closure of around 250 American locations in the first half of 2026 alone. 3 fast food chains together are shutting more than 800 stores this year. A national Tex-Mex chain has closed dozens of locations. A beloved American chain quietly went dark in hundreds more. A Mexican food brand did not phase out its restaurants. It closed every single one of them across the country, all at once, in a week. And a franchisee at the Mall of America, among the highest traffic retail sites in the country, a place where the foot traffic is supposed to make failure impossible, filed Chapter 7 bankruptcy on their seafood franchise. That story is worth staying for, because the picture the industry wants you to see is nominal sales up nearly a quarter since 2021. The picture the industry does not want you to see is what happened after inflation ate that growth. Technomic, which tracks the country's largest chains through its Top 1500 report, puts the real number in view. More than 60% of American restaurant chains could not keep pace with inflation from 2021 to 2025. Sales at the high end kept climbing. Sales at every chain built on affordability quietly collapsed. Aggregate data looks healthier than the reality for most operators because the average is being carried by the diners who never noticed the price of a pizza changing. One of those chains closing hundreds of American stores is simultaneously planning to open up to 1,000 new locations. Not here. That is the second question worth staying for. 60,000 jobs in 1 month is the headline. What that headline hides is what comes next. The industry will tell you sales grew nearly a quarter since 2021. What it will not tell you is what happened after inflation ate every dollar of that growth, and a few points more besides. Roughly 23% nominal growth, negative 4% real, according to Technomic's 4-year read on the country's 1,500 largest chains. On paper, growth. In the checking account, contraction. And here is the number that should stop you cold. 6 out of every 10 American restaurant chains could not keep pace with inflation over those 4 years. Not one bad quarter, not one slow region. 4 years of falling behind, quietly, chain by chain, while the industry averages kept looking respectable. You have felt this without seeing it. The combo meal that used to be $6 is $9 now, The pizza that fed a family for 20 is 30. The tip screen defaults higher. The receipt at the bottom of the takeout bag reads like a small utility bill. So you go less often. And the chain built to feed you notices. In a way, its quarterly report can hide, but its dining room cannot. Now here is where it gets strange. Over those same 4 years, the top 1,500 chains added units, grew their footprint by around 6%. The US population grew roughly 3% in the same window by census estimate. More restaurants, fewer customers per restaurant. The typical American visited a chain less often in 2025 than in 2021, reversing the entire post-pandemic recovery. If this reporting is helping you make sense of the closures on your own commute, a quiet like pushes it to other Americans watching the same storefronts go dark. Which raises a practical question the industry cannot answer cleanly. How can unit counts be rising while closures dominate the headlines? Consider Subway, the brand on every corner of your childhood. Real sales down roughly 4.5% since 2021. And since 2015, Subway has closed more locations than nearly any other restaurant chain in modern American history. A decade plus of shedding storefronts, one lease at a time, in strip malls you drove past without noticing the paper on the windows. Consider Arby's. Real sales down around 5% since 2021. The chains built on affordability, the ones your paycheck used to stretch across, are losing ground fastest. The chains built for higher income diners are, in the industry's own words, performing perfectly fine. When a chain's customer base is the working family that used to eat out twice a week and now eats out twice a month, the math ends where the lease renewal begins. 60,000 hospitality jobs disappeared in June. The chains those workers clocked into are not who you would guess. They are not the steakhouses. They are not the reservation-only fast casual concepts with the $16 bowls. They are the counter-service brands built for the American family that used to eat out twice a week and now eats out twice a month. You know these places. The pizza chain where the kids' birthdays happened. The seafood window where a fish sandwich cost less than a movie ticket. The sub shop on the corner where a working shift could be fed for $8. Those are the storefronts going dark. The people losing the paychecks are the ones who could least afford to. Start with the workers. Food services and drinking places shed nearly 33,000 jobs in June alone by the Bureau's count. One slice of a sector where the median hourly wage sits well below the national median. A line cook in Ohio, a shift lead at a Pizza Hut outside Tulsa, a cashier at a Long John Silver's inside a mall food court. The pink slip lands the same way it always has. A manager pulling someone aside near the walk-in freezer at the end of a shift. One shift's tips left in an envelope, no next schedule on the wall. Then the number underneath the number. Prime age labor force participation. Americans between 25 and 54, the workers who anchor households, fell 0.6 of a percentage point in June by the Bureau's household survey. Among the largest single-month drops in the record. Roughly 720,000 Americans walked out of the labor force in that 30-day window. Overall participation slid to 61.5%, the lowest reading since the pandemic winter of 2021. These are not retirees choosing golf. These are working-age people who stopped looking. Now, the customers. The chains closing fastest built their business on people who no longer walk in. Quick-service pizza sales rose almost 6% since 2021, which sounds like growth until you subtract the menu price inflation baked into that number. In real terms, that is a sharp double-digit decline. Fewer pies, fewer visits, fewer tables filled. Higher-income diners kept spending. Everyone else quietly stopped. What was the neighborhood chain restaurant you grew up going to that is no longer there? The one your parents took you to on a Friday. The one that closed without a farewell. Drop it below. Franchisees feel the squeeze last and worst. In May, the operator of a Long John Silver's inside the Mall of America filed Chapter 7 bankruptcy in the U.S. Bankruptcy Court for the District of Minnesota. If a franchise cannot survive there, at that foot traffic, on that anchor lease, the ground has shifted under every operator on every smaller main street in the country. Same industry, same year. A restaurant sector sorting its customers by income and closing the doors on everyone below the line. That raises the harder question. How did all of this arrive at once? Start with the interest rate. The Federal Reserve walked out of its June meeting and left its benchmark rate where it was. Not a cut, not a signal, a hold. Headline inflation was still running above 4%. Core PCE, the Fed's preferred gauge, sat in the mid-threes. A franchisee looking to refinance a loan on a suburban pizza location in July found the same borrowing cost as in April and in January. Now stack that against your grocery bill. The World Bank ran the numbers on global fertilizer in the first 5 months of 2026 and clocked a sharp jump over the year before. Fertilizer becomes feed. Feed becomes chicken and beef and cheese. Cheese becomes a slice of pizza that costs the operator more to make than it did last summer, on a lease that has not gotten cheaper, financed at a rate that has not moved. Meanwhile, the customer on the other side of the counter is doing math too. Since January, more than 1,600 American companies have announced mass layoffs by tallies drawn from WARN filings. Meta cut thousands. Nike cut over 1,000, mostly in its tech department. Spirit Airlines simply ceased operations and put hundreds of Orlando workers on the street in a single week. Every one of those paychecks was a Friday night pizza order. Every one of them is now a frozen pizza from the grocery aisle, or nothing at all. Here is where the whole thing turns inside out. The chain restaurant industry did not shrink through this decade. It grew. More restaurants, chasing a customer who was visiting less often, paying more per visit when they came. Growth on the balance sheet. Hollowing out on the ground. That is saturation. And saturation in a low-growth economy has one honest ending. The weakest units close first. Which brings back a question left hanging. One major fast food chain is shutting hundreds of its American stores. That same chain has told its investors it plans to open up to 1,000 new locations in China. The capital did not disappear. It moved. The build-out is happening, just not on your main street. It is happening in Shanghai, and Chengdu, and Shenzhen, in cities where the middle class is still climbing rather than treading water. American franchisees read that press release and understand exactly what it means about the value of their license. There is a subtler force underneath all of this. Restaurant business calls it trading up. As fast food prices climbed toward casual dining prices, the customer who used to grab a value meal did the math at the counter and decided that for another $2, they would rather sit down. Fast casual chains' share of the market rose by roughly 2 percentage points. Quick service share fell. The customer did not stop eating out. They stopped eating at the tier the industry built the most of. So this is not one pressure. It is 5 braided together. Rates that will not fall. Input costs that will not settle. A consumer base that keeps shrinking. A saturated industry that overbuilt for a customer who cannot afford it anymore. And capital quietly packing its bags for a different continent. The closure notices going up on drive-through windows this year are the receipts. When a Long John Silver's inside the Mall of America goes dark, the loss does not stop at the roped-off counter. It rolls outward. The kiosk next door loses its lunch crowd. The shoe store, 2 units down, loses the family that used to eat first, then shop. The cleaning contractor loses a stop on the route. The teenager who worked weekends loses the paycheck that covered her phone bill. The city loses the sales tax receipts that used to patch the roads and pay the crossing guard. That is how a closure spreads on the ground, not as one event, but as a slow leak of foot traffic through every business that sat within walking distance of the sign. A generation ago, an anchor chain restaurant on a suburban corner was assumed permanent. Its parking lot fed the dry cleaner. Its lunch rush fed the barber shop. Its late shift fed the gas station across the street. That assumption is over. Look at the map of where this is landing hardest. California, Florida, Tennessee. Those 3 states are showing up again and again in 2026 closure reporting. Chain restaurants and anchor retailers going dark in the same corridors, the same strip malls, the same suburban intersections. Rural counties are taking it worst per capita, because a small town losing its one sit-down chain does not just lose a restaurant. It loses the only place along the interstate exit where a trucker or a traveling family used to stop. You have driven past one of these blocks. A Pizza Hut with the windows papered over. A Wendy's drive-thru with the lane coned off. 2 doors down, a nail salon that used to catch the after-lunch crowd is now open 3 days a week. Consider what Long John Silver's looks like on paper. Over 1,000 units a decade ago, fewer than 500 today. The company calls it routine portfolio optimization, lease expirations, relocations, changing trade areas. That is the corporate language for cutting a chain in half over 10 years while nobody notices, because it happens 2 or 3 stores at a time. Then, in May, a Mexican food chain did the opposite. Every single US location. Same week. Doors locked, signs still lit, employees showing up to a note on the door. Not a phase-out, a full withdrawal. For a hospitality worker looking for the next shift, this is what a low-hire market feels like at eye level. Leisure and hospitality has posted almost no net job growth for the year. Applications go in, callbacks do not come back. The county workforce office has rows of empty chairs because the postings themselves are gone. That is not a slump. That is a sorting. The chains that priced themselves for working families are losing the working families they were priced for, which means the closures already on the ground are not the end of the list. The chains still standing are simply further back in the same line. If this kind of reporting is useful to you, subscribing keeps it coming. Now the customer side of that same equation. The labor force participation rate fell for a 7th straight month in June, down to 61.5%, lowest since February of 2021. The people who spend their paychecks at chain restaurants have fewer paychecks to spend. Then layer the weather on top. The World Bank puts the probability of El Niño emerging by mid-2026 and sticking into 2027 well above even odds. If it lands, rice output falls sharply in the exposed regions. Every one of those inputs eventually shows up on the invoice a chain operator opens on a Monday morning. Which brings us to what is already scheduled. Wendy's has more locations coming down later this year. Pizza Hut is not done with its list. Papa John's has a list of doomed stores that trade publications have been printing for months. The winners in this economy are real. Fast casual coffee has more than doubled its sales since 2021. Chicken concepts are booming. Asian fast casual is booming. But those wins are landing in the neighborhoods that were already fine. The losses are landing on the drive-thrus, the strip mall pizza places, the value menu counters that working families built their week around. That is the shape of it. Not a crash, a withdrawal. Capital pulling out of the American communities that needed the traffic most. One lease expiration at a time. Watch the next Bureau jobs report and the next round of Wendy's, Pizza Hut, and Papa John's closure announcements before the year is out. Those numbers will tell you whether the corner storefront in your town is on the list or off it.